A sharp alarm burst through the dark room as Elena Torres said, "Not again. That spike makes no sense." While the monitors flickered like a storm was trapped inside the screens, the city hummed outside her window, yet something colder moved underneath the data, a quiet shake that made her coffee ripple. Jonah Reed said, "Elena, look at the pattern." "It shouldn't rise this fast unless someone forces it." She felt her breath hitch as red lines climbed in sudden jumps, like a heartbeat losing control. Sirens whispered far away, softer than the numbers screaming before her. She sensed the weight of something hidden, something pushed out of view. "If this is real," she said. Then someone knew before anyone else. The lights blinked once, the data froze, and a single message flashed across her main screen. "Prepare." Then everything went black, leaving her staring into a silence that held one question she could not escape. Elena sat in the quiet after the blackout, her fingers tapping the desk as if trying to summon answers from dead machines. Jonah said, "This wasn't a glitch. Someone killed the feed." She felt the weight of his words sink in as she pictured the spike again, rising like a warning from beneath the surface. The building hummed faintly, but everything inside her felt still. "If someone forced those numbers," she said, "then someone planned for the fallout." Jonah walked to the window, watching the strange fog drift between towers, like a slow secret. She opened her laptop, hoping for even a stray signal, but the network stayed silent. A chill pressed against her spine as she whispered, "Who prepares for a crash before it happens?" Jonah said, "Maybe it's a model someone buried, a signal they wanted gone." Elena leaned over her silent screens, remembering every strange movement from the last week, every spike dismissed as noise. Something inside her resisted the idea that this was random. She opened her notebook, pages filled with rushed patterns and questions. "If there's a missing piece," she said, "we need to find it before it surfaces again." The fog outside thickened, dulling the world beyond the window as if cutting them off. Jonah paced behind her, each step heavier than the last. She felt the pressure building not from what they knew, but from what someone else clearly feared they'd discover. Elena replayed the last moment before the blackout in her mind, the way the data leapt, as if pushed. Jonah said, "If someone pulled the plug, there has to be a reason." She flipped to an older page in her notes, where she had circled a strange repeating pulse. She didn't want to admit it, but the pattern felt designed. "What if this wasn't a reaction?" she said softly, "but a countdown?" Jonah stopped pacing. The idea hung between them like smoke. She knew the markets didn't move with intention. People did. Someone out there held a truth powerful enough to cut the lights on an entire system. The power returned with a soft thrum, lights humming back to life, but the screens stayed empty, stripped of every trace of what they had seen. Jonah said, "Someone wiped the feed." Elena felt a sharp sting in her chest as she stared at the blank monitors, their emptiness louder than any alarm. She sensed a line being crossed, one she couldn't step back from. "If they erased it," she said, "that means it mattered." She reached for her phone, only to find her inbox wiped clean of market alerts. The silence around them felt staged, intentional. She looked at Jonah and said, "Someone is already ahead of us." Elena walked into the office with a tight grip on her thoughts, the memory of the vanished data still pulsing behind her eyes. Marcus Vale said, "You look like someone saw the bottom fall out before the rest of us." His tone carried the calm of a man who never let the market storms touch him. She wanted to ignore him, but his presence felt too steady, too aware. Jonah leaned against her desk, whispering, "Tell him nothing." Yet she sensed Marcus already knew more than he should. Screens across the trading floor flickered with half-formed patterns, like signals trying to break through. "Something's suppressing the feeds," she said quietly. Though the words tasted dangerous, Marcus watched her with a hint of curiosity, the kind that made her uneasy. She wondered if he had seen the same spike, if he had prepared long before she understood what it meant. Jonah pulled her aside, lowering his voice, as if the air itself might be listening. "The message wasn't random," he said. "I checked system logs on my home server. Something pinged the network right before the blackout." Eleanor felt her pulse rise, the pattern forming like a shadow she didn't fully see yet. "If that's true," she said, "then someone is injecting signals upstream." The noise of traders around them grew sharper, every keyboard tap carrying a hint of tension. She thought about the word that appeared on her screen, the one that still clung to her mind like a warning. Jonah's face tightened. "This feels coordinated," he said. She knew he was right, but the scale of it unsettled her. No single person could mute an entire data stream unless they stood close to the source of power. Elena met with Ria Sen in a small archive room where rows of old market printouts lined the shelves like forgotten warnings. Ria said, "Crashes follow rhythms, but this spike doesn't belong to any known cycle." Elena sensed the weight behind her words, a quiet certainty rooted in decades of patterns. She spread her notes across the table, each marked with symbols she had traced the night before. "Someone predicted this," she said. "Someone positioned themselves before the disruption." Ria studied the pages, her eyes narrowing as if recognizing something buried far deeper. "This isn't prediction," she said. "It's design." Elena felt the floor shift beneath the meaning of that word. If true, then the spike wasn't the start of something. It was the middle of a plan already in motion. Marcus appeared in the doorway as Elena left the archive, his expression unreadable. "You're chasing ghosts," he said, walking beside her with steps too smooth to be casual. She didn't respond, but he continued. "Markets fall all the time. People panic. Signals fail. Doesn't mean someone's pulling strings." She heard the certainty in his tone, the careful choice of words. Jonah waited at the end of the hall, watching Marcus with suspicion, sharp enough to cut through the hum of passing conversations. She said, "If there's nothing to hide, why wipe the feeds?" Marcus stopped walking, eyes steady. "Because someone wants you afraid," he said. She couldn't tell if it was a warning or a confession. Back at her workstation, Elena noticed a new file in her inbox, a nameless document with no sender. Jonah leaned over her shoulder, his voice barely above a breath. "Open it." The file displayed a single chart, a curve rising with impossible accuracy toward a cliff-edge drop. It was a prediction, but one too perfect to be natural. "This is a model," she said, "but it knows the future." Jonah's expression hardened. Someone's running simulations on real markets. She felt the cold grip of clarity settle across her chest. Whoever built the model didn't just know the crash was coming. They were shaping it. She whispered, "We're already inside their timeline." Elena leaned back from the screen, the model's curve replaying in her mind like a quiet threat she couldn't shut out. Jonah said, "Whoever built this had access far beyond our level." She felt pressure building behind her ribs, a sense that the walls of the trading floor were closing in with every passing second. The noise around them faded as her thoughts narrowed to one point. Someone inside the system was shaping the future. "We need to trace the data's origin," she said. Jonah nodded, but worry slid across his face as if he feared what she might find. A pulse of unease ran through her when she realized the model didn't predict a crash. It timed it, and the countdown had already begun. She whispered, "If they control the timing, they control everything." Elena and Jonah slipped into the secure analytics room, a cold space filled with humming machines and long glass panels displaying archived feeds. Jonah said, "If the signal originated inside the network, this is where we'll see traces." She scanned the logs, each line a quiet clue waiting for the right attention. The air felt heavier here, as if the room recorded more than data. "There," she said, pointing at a sequence stamped minutes before the blackout. The code carried a signature she didn't recognize, but the precision made her stomach tighten. Jonah stepped closer, his breath catching. "That's not internal," he said. She knew what that meant. Someone outside the exchange had reached inside a place they never should have touched. Rhea joined them after Jonah sent an encrypted note asking for her eyes on the code. She approached the display slowly, scanning the sequence with the concentration of someone reading a language she had long feared to see again. "This is an old structure," she said. "Something built to reroute market flows without leaving evidence." Elena felt a slight tremor run through her, realizing this wasn't a new threat, but the evolution of one. Rhea traced the pattern with her finger, stopping on a symbol that seemed harmless until viewed in context. "This was meant to trigger," she said. "Not warn." Jonah looked at Elena, his voice low. "So the spike wasn't the danger." She nodded, understanding now. It was the countdown announcing the real event yet to come. Marcus appeared without warning as Elena left the secure room. His presence silent yet unmistakably intentional. "You're looking in places that don't belong to you," he said, his voice calm but edged with something sharper. She kept her posture steady, refusing to show the unease rising inside her. "Information belongs to those who can see it," she said. His gaze held hers long enough to unsettle her rhythm. "Some information," he replied, "is designed to stay buried." Jonah stepped between them with a firmness she rarely saw from him. Marcus didn't react, but his eyes tracked Elena as if measuring her next move. She felt a cold certainty settle over her. Marcus knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to be dangerous. Back at her desk, Elena decrypted the rest of the log sequence, her fingertips trembling slightly as lines of code unfolded into a structure more alarming than she imagined. It wasn't a model predicting a crash. It was a schedule for one. The exact moment was set, the path laid out with chilling accuracy. Jonah read over her shoulder, his voice cracking softly as he said, "This is a blueprint." She swallowed hard, feeling the markets hum around her turn hollow. "Someone's building the crash from inside the system," she said. Rhea stood behind them now, silent but understanding. Elena felt the truth settle across her mind like a heavy lock clicking into place. They were uncovering a mistake. They were uncovering an operation. Elena stepped into the records vault, its cold air wrapping around her like a warning as the door shut behind her with a heavy click. Jonah said, "If the trigger point is real, we'll find proof here." Though his voice trembled with the weight of what they were already certain of. Rows of sealed drives lined the walls, each containing years of market behavior, preserved like fossils. She opened a terminal and searched for archived feeds tied to the blackout, her pulse rising as restricted folders appeared one after another. "These shouldn't be accessible," she whispered. But the system responded to her queries as if expecting them. Jonah hovered beside her, breath uneven. "Someone left a trail," he said. She felt the truth pushing forward. The person behind this operation wasn't hiding from them. They were guiding them towards something. And that realization tightened in her chest, like a hand closing slowly. Elena found a folder labeled with a meaningless string. Yet the moment she opened it, a series of charts appeared. Patterns that mirrored the hidden model, but traced back months. Jonah said, "This started long before the spike," his voice steadying as the scale widened before them. She enlarged the earliest file, and the chart rose like a quiet wave preparing to break. "This isn't a countdown," she said. "It's a rehearsal." The idea chilled her. The thought of someone practicing a crash, the way a musician rehearsed a performance. Jonah leaned closer, eyes narrowing. They were testing how fast the market reacts. She felt a heaviness settle in her chest, realizing they weren't dealing with a single event, but an evolving design refined over time. The rehearsals meant one thing. The final version would be flawless. Rhea entered the vault quietly, her expression already shaped by a suspicion she carried long before Elena called her. She approached the screen, eyes tightening as she scanned the rehearsals. "This structure matches an old manipulation framework," she said. "It was banned years ago." Elena felt a slow, sharp chill when Rhea added, "Only regulators had access to it." Jonah stepped back as if the air had thickened. Elena replayed Marcus's warnings, each word forming a new angle she hadn't dared consider. "Are you saying this was built inside the oversight board?" Rhea didn't answer immediately, her silence revealing more than words. "Some of them believed controlled crashes cleanse markets," she said. Elena felt her stomach tighten. If this was an engineered reset, then the collapse wasn't an accident waiting to happen. It was policy. Elena stepped out of the vault to clear her thoughts, but Marcus was already waiting in the dim hall, as if he had known exactly where she would go. "You found the rehearsals," he said, not bothering to hide the fact. Her pulse jumped at how casually he acknowledged it. "You're part of this," she said, voice steady despite the rising fear beneath it. He didn't deny it. Instead, he walked toward her with quiet steps that echoed more than they should have. "Markets become reckless when left alone," he said. "Sometimes you have to let them fall so they can be rebuilt." She felt anger burn through her fear, realizing he believed every word. Jonah rushed out behind her, but Marcus didn't look away from her. "You can't stop this," he said. "But you can understand why it has to happen." Elena returned to her office with a storm building behind her ribs, Marcus' words looping through her mind like a threat, disguised as logic. Jonah closed the blinds and checked the room for hidden devices, his movements sharp and restless. "He thinks he's saving the system," Jonah said. She opened her laptop and connected to a secure line, her fingers moving faster than her thoughts. "We need to expose the rehearsals," she said. "If the public sees the framework, they'll realize the crash wasn't natural." Rhea joined them moments later, carrying a printed trace she pulled from the vault. "This symbol here," she said, pointing to the page, "belongs to someone higher than Marcus." Elena felt her breath catch. If Marcus wasn't the architect, then someone above him built the model, and the crash was far from its final stage. Elena gathered every file they had uncovered, spreading them across the conference table as if arranging the pieces of a confession the system never meant to speak. Jonah said, "If we release this raw, they'll bury it before anyone reads it." She knew he was right. Power had a way of erasing truth faster than Markets erased doubt. Rhea leaned over the documents, tracing the rehearsals with a slow, steady hand. "We need a pathway no one controls," she said. Elena felt a spark of resolve rising through the pressure in her chest. They weren't just following evidence now. They were preparing to push back. "We'll route it through independent networks," she said. The hum of the building pressed in around them, as if the walls sensed what they planned. Jonah exhaled softly. "Once we send this," he said, "there's no going back." She nodded, knowing the line they were crossing could never be uncrossed. Elena accessed a secure darknet relay, fingers moving with quiet urgency as she prepared the files for transmission. Jonah watched the screen anxiously, every flicker of code tightening the air between them. "If the oversight board tracks the source, they'll come straight here," he said. She didn't look up, choosing focus over fear. Rhea stood by the door, listening for footsteps in the hallway, her steady presence grounding them. Lines of encrypted data rolled across the display, each one a fragment of truth waiting to surface. "This can't be traced," Elena said, though her voice carried the weight of hope more than certainty. Jonah whispered, "They built a crash. We're about to build a signal." She pressed the final command, sending the first packet into the anonymous network. Halfway through the upload, the room's lights flickered, and Elena felt a jolt of dread run up her spine. Jonah said, "They're intercepting. We need to move faster." She redirected the relay through 2 additional nodes, her pulse sensing with the rising tension in the air. Rhea checked her phone, eyes narrowing at the sudden block on external communication. "They shut down outbound channels," she said. Elena's fingers trembled as she forced the data through encrypted tunnels, not meant for this volume. The sense of being watched tightened around her, as if invisible hands were closing in. "Come on, hold," she whispered. Jonah watched the progress bar crawl forward. "They know we're in their system," he said quietly. Elena didn't flinch. She knew stopping now meant giving the architects of the crash full control. The upload stalled, freezing at the final segment. Elena felt panic push against her resolve, but she forced herself to breathe steady. Jonah said, "We're being throttled. We need another gateway." Rhea stepped forward, pulling a small external drive from her coat. "Use the offline route," she said. Elena connected the drive and rerouted the transfer, the system resisting each command like a locked door straining under pressure. A distant alarm echoed through the hallway, low but unmistakable. Jonah tensed. "They're coming." She focused only on the screen, on the last line of code that refused to move. "Almost," she whispered. The moment stretched thin until the final segment blinked green. Rhea's voice softened. "It's out." Relief washed over Elena, but it carried a sharp edge. If the signal was free, then so were the consequences. The moment the upload confirmed, the building's security lights flashed, and Elena knew they had only seconds before being found. Jonah said, "We need to disappear." She grabbed the remaining documents and shoved them into her bag, the adrenaline sharpening her claret. Rhea blocked the office camera with a quick swipe of her scarf, buying them precious moments. "The board won't let this go public," she said. Elena pushed open the side stairwell door, listening to the echo of heavy footsteps above them. Time folded into urgency as they hurried downward, each step a reminder of what they had set in motion. "The truth is out there now," Jonah whispered. Elena felt the cold air rising from the lower floors, carrying both fear and a strange sense of direction. They hadn't stopped the crash, not yet, but they had given the world a reason to question it. Elena stepped into the abandoned parking level beneath the tower, her breath echoing softly in the cold air as the reality of what they had done pressed down on her like a weight she wasn't sure she could carry. Jonah said, "The file is spreading. Independent nodes are mirroring it," though his voice carried more fear than victory. Rhea looked toward the ramp leading to the street, her posture steady, but her eyes alert. Elena felt the hum of the city above them, each vibration hinting at machinery, shifting in response to their actions. "They'll move fast," she said. "They'll call it misinformation. They'll try to silence the story before it settles." Jonah paced in short steps, hands trembling as if trying to release a pressure he couldn't contain. Rhea touched Elena's arm gently. "We still have one advantage," she said. "They don't know our next step." Elena nodded, though the path ahead felt like walking into a storm without knowing where the lightning would strike. They moved toward a service corridor that led to a deserted maintenance room, the hum of distant engines masking their hurried steps. Jonah said, "I checked the relay logs. Someone tried to scrub the packet 2 minutes after it hit the network." Elena didn't slow, but she felt a sharp twist in her chest. That fast means they were watching every layer. Rhea pulled open a metal door, revealing an old breaker panel and a dusty workstation used by night engineers. Elena powered the terminal, hoping it still connected to a forgotten line. The dim screen flickered to life, offering a fragile lifeline in a tightening world. "We can track the public reactions from here," she said. Jonah leaned closer, watching early mentions appear across underground forums. "It's spreading," he whispered. But Elena saw another feed emerging beneath the chatter. An official statement forming, crafted to crush everything they had revealed. The terminal refreshed with a sudden surge, revealing a statement from the oversight board, dismissing the leaked files as fabricated noise. Elena felt the sting of the words, each one designed to blur truth with confusion. Jonah said, "They're calling it a coordinated hoax," disbelief tightening his voice. Rhea moved behind them, her presence steady as she studied the board's message, twisting the narrative into something harmless. "They were ready for this," Elena said, her thoughts sharpening with an anger that replaced the tremor in her chest. She scrolled further, and found analysts on major networks echoing the board's dismissal, their rehearsed lines spreading like a second wave meant to drown the first. Jonah leaned forward. "But some people are questioning it," he said. She saw it too, small posts, scattered but loud enough to spark doubt. It wasn't victory, but it was a crack in the wall they needed. Elena backed away from the terminal, her mind racing ahead of her heartbeat. "We need someone outside their reach," she said, the thought forming with a clarity that surprised even her. Jonah frowned. "Who would take the risk?" Rhea answered before Elena could speak. "Chairman Holt. He left the board last year. He fought against controlled crashes for decades." Elena felt a spark of hope stir beneath the exhaustion. Holt had vanished from public view, but his absence was the loudest signal of all. "If he sees the files," she said. "He'll know they're real." Jonah nodded slowly, his fear easing into determination. Rhea opened a worn notebook where she kept old contacts. "I have a number," she said quietly. Elena felt the world narrow to this single thread. If Holt spoke publicly, the truth could outrun any denial. The phone's dial tone hummed through the room, each second stretching like a test of their resolve. Elena held the device to her ear, her hands steady despite the weight of the moment. Jonah whispered, "If he doesn't answer, we're alone in this." Rhea stood close, her calm presence anchoring the rising tension. After a long pause, a voice finally responded, worn, cautious, and unmistakably familiar. Elena said, "Chairman Holt, we need your help." The framework wasn't dismantled, they revived it. Silence hung on the line before he replied, "Where are you?" She exchanged a glance with Jonah and Rhea, sensing the risk but also the chance they desperately needed. "Somewhere they won't look," she said. Holt's voice sharpened. "Then listen carefully. You don't have much time." As the call ended, Elena felt the path ahead shift again. No safer, but suddenly clearer. Elena followed Jonah and Rhea through the narrow service alley behind the tower, the cold wind cutting through the silence as if urging them to move faster. Holt's instructions echoed in her mind, each one sounding more like a warning than guidance. Jonah said, "He wants to meet in person." That means the files shook him. She nodded, feeling the air thicken with the weight of what they carried. They reached an old utility substation where the hum of aging transformers masked their footsteps. Rhea checked the shadows before motioning them inside. Elena felt her heartbeat quicken, sensing the moment shifting from discovery to confrontation. Holt's voice over the phone replayed in fragments. Fear, urgency, and something else she couldn't name. "If he's right," she said quietly, "the crash isn't coming. It's already in motion." Jonah swallowed hard while Rhea locked the door behind them, sealing them inside a truth far larger than they expected to face. Inside the substation, the air smelled of dust and old circuitry, the faint buzz of transformers bleeding through the walls like distant static. Jonah paced between the metal cabinets, while Elena reviewed Holt's message again, her mind tightening around every implication. Rhea said, "He wouldn't call unless the board was moving against him too." Elena felt a chill settle around her shoulders, sharper than the cold seeping from the concrete floor. She knew Holt had once defended transparency with a conviction that cost him allies in every direction. "If he saw the files," she said, "he understands what they mean." Jonah stopped pacing, meeting her eyes with quiet fear. "Then he knows the crash isn't an accident. He knows who built it." Elena's breath held at the thought. The architects weren't hiding in shadows anymore. They were accelerating. The door creaked open slowly, and Holt stepped inside with the weary caution of someone who had lived too long with more secrets than allies. Elena felt her breath hitch as he nodded once, acknowledging the dangers surrounding them. "You did the right thing sending the files," he said, his voice low but steady. Rhea asked, "How long have they been running rehearsals?" Holt's answer came without hesitation, "Long enough to know exactly how to time the fall." Jonah looked shaken, the truth landing heavier than any data spike or vanished feed. Elena stepped closer. "Can we stop it?" Holt studied her with a sadness she didn't expect. "You can't stop what's already in motion," he said, "but you can expose the architects before they rewrite the aftermath." His words struck something deep in her. This wasn't about preventing the collapse, but revealing its makers before they erased their fingerprints. Holt spread the documents he carried across a metal workbench, revealing signatures and directives that made Elena's pulse stutter. "These are the authorizations," he said. "They disguised them as stress test protocols." Jonah leaned in, disbelief tightening his features as he recognized names high enough to reshape entire economies. Rhea whispered, "This is the core. The plan starts here." Elena felt the shock roll through her, but beneath it rose a fierce clarity. This was the final piece, the proof no denial could bury. "If we release this," she said, "they'll lose control of the narrative." Holt nodded. "And that's the one thing they fear." The room felt smaller suddenly, the weight of the evidence crowding the air. Jonah said, "Then we go public now." Elena exhaled slowly, sensing both danger and purpose folding into the same breath. There was no more hiding, only the truth left to reveal. Elena connected her laptop to the substation's forgotten fiber line, the old network sparking to life, as if waking for the first time in years. Jonah stood beside her, steady now, his fear replaced by resolve. Rhea monitored activity on a backup device, while Holt waited near the door, listening for anyone who might have tracked them. Elena initiated the broadcast, the documents and rehearsals streaming toward independent outlets, watchdog groups, and underground networks in a cascade of unfiltered proof. "It's moving," Jonah said, voice tight but hopeful. The hum of the transformers grew louder, echoing like distant thunder as the last packet cleared the system. Holt stepped forward. "You've done what the board never expected. You forced the truth into the open." Elena leaned back, breath shaking as the weight finally lifted. The crash would still come, but now the world would see the hands that built it, and that visibility changed everything.